As arrangements for the release of detainees between Hamas and Israel begin in Egypt, hopes rise for a breakthrough in Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. While mediators push for progress, the occupation army continues its deadly bombardment, killing dozens of Palestinians within just hours. Hamas has agreed to terms of the plan, including detainee releases, but did not address others, such as full disarmament. Trump insists that the first phase of the plan should be completed this week, saying that this time is essence. Will Israel's occupation forces continue their aggression despite diplomatic momentum? And how will this agreement shape the future of Gaza? I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Welcome to In Depth. Israel and Hamas prepared for talks in Egypt amid cautious hopes for a ceasefire and a detainee exchange. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff joined Egyptian-hosted talks meant to flesh out a U.S. plan that envisions the phased release of Israeli detainees in return for Palestinian prisoners and an Israeli withdrawal. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called it the closest we've come to freeing all the detainees, but warned major logistical and political hurdles remain. International backing for talks grew as foreign ministers of several Muslim and Arab countries urged rapid negotiations and discussed a transitional governing arrangement for Gaza that could return authority to the Palestinian Authority. Despite the diplomatic momentum, Israeli strikes continued across Gaza over the weekend, with Palestinian health authorities reporting heavy casualties and medics warning the humanitarian situation remains dire. The New York Times reports that cautious optimism surrounds a potential peace plan for Gaza, though significant hurdles remain. U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a 20-point proposal aiming to end the war, secure the release of remaining Israeli detainees, and exchange them for Palestinian detainees. Hamas signaled readiness to release the detainees, but expressed reservations about giving up its weapons or relinquishing all the political influence in Gaza. Israel, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said that it was preparing for the immediate release of detainees, while insisting Hamas must be removed from Gaza's governance. Secretary of State Marco Rubio praised the new framework, but acknowledged challenges ahead, stressing that some work remains to be done. Internal Israeli political pressures also complicate the process, raising doubts about whether this round of talks will deliver a lasting breakthrough. According to the Times of Israel, Trump warned Hamas that it would face complete obliteration if it tried to clinch to pairing Gaza, as delegations prepared for Cairo talks on his peace plan to arrange for the detainees exchange. Trump reportedly clashed with Netanyahu in a tense call, urging him to stop being so negative and to accept the deal as a win. Despite public optimism, deep divisions remain. Hamas has signaled readiness to release the detainees, but continues to demand clarity on Israeli troop withdrawals. Netanyahu insists no progress will be made until every detainee is freed. Marco Rubio said that Hamas had agreed in principle to Trump's framework, including detainee exchanges and a technocratic administration for Gaza. Trump has pressed for immediate implementation, but fears of serious obstacles ahead rise. For more analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Dr. Nurhan Sheikh, political science professor, and from Jenin by Mr. Nu'man Tawfiq Al-Abid, Palestinian writer and political analyst. Welcome to Qnews. Professor Nurhan, now arrangements for the release of detainees have begun in Egypt under Trump's peace plan. What are your expectations in this regard?
Good evening, Hala, and thank you for having me with you. Actually, I
Always a
think it will
pleasure.
be very difficult and complicated negotiation because up to the date there is no any signs from Netanyahu and from Israeli side to give some hope or some relaxation for Hamas. Up to the date, Israeli continue pumping Gaza and hundreds of people killed along the day. So I think this is very important to stop first of all pumping Gaza to give some hope and some sign and positive signs for Hamas and for negotiation.
Mhm.
Plus some issues which they are disagreed a lot about it. First of all, moving people from south to north Gaza. Israel refused totally that, and actually it started to pumping and killing people who thought that it is time to move, and the negotiation started. So they may move from back to their homes as soon as they started to move. Israel unfortunately pumped them and killed them.
Mm.
This is one of the main issues, the disagreement about it. Plus, the withdrawal of Israel, because there are some interpretation concerning the withdrawal of Israel, because Hamas, from its point of view, it should be a complete withdrawal, because as up to the date, Israel controlled and occupied 80% of Gaza, or more than that. So Hamas asked for total and complete withdrawal. Israel has its own interpretation for such withdrawal and want to keep centralized in many parts of Gaza, which is not acceptable to Hamas.
Mhm.
In addition to that, detainees, as you mentioned in the reports, Hamas asked to release some Palestinian detainees who are not accepted from Israel, like Marwan al-Barghousi, Sadat, etc. Israel refused totally and completely to release them, and Hamas insisted to release them.
Mhm.
We have, I expect it would be a difficult negotiation, but nothing possible. They may reach some consensus, something in between, and hopefully it is going in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Mhm. Mr. Nauman, now Hamas has not addressed the issue of governing Gaza after the war, which is, of course, a major part of Trump's plan. So, the so called Board of Peace, do you think that this point is subject to negotiations from Trump and Israel's perspective?
Good evening, everyone who's watching, and to the guests. First of all, what the US president proposed has to be focused on the Palestinian side around three things: stopping the offensive and the collective genocide that has been going on for 2 years now. Almost tomorrow, it is basically the anniversary of this genocide and these humanitarian atrocities that Netanyahu and the Israeli occupation forces have been doing. And so, any plan to stop this offensive and this genocide is very welcomed from Palestine and the Arab and Islamic countries. Second thing is delivering humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. We know that they are using a strategic starvation policy that Israel has been using, and this is one of the atrocities that Israel is convicted of in the International Court of Justice. And so, delivering humanitarian aid, and one of the most important things also, and one of the pillars for any agreement or any plan proposed either from the US president or any mediator or organization, is the condition that these humanitarian aid has to be delivered through any of the corridors to the Gaza Strip and through the UN that Israel has tried, and also Trump's government have tried to to get them out of the game, and created the humanitarian Gaza organization, and then used the starvation policy again. And then the third thing is refusing the displacement. We know that Israel had plans, and Trump actually supported this, but not really now, which is for the forceful displacement of the Palestinians, and so on. Everyone has refused and condemned such strategies. It is unreal that we are in this century, and now and the president of the largest country is asking the whole people of Gaza to leave their land. And in my opinion, he wants to get the displaced persons out of the and so if he wants to displace them, he has to force out the Israeli settlers that have taken over the Palestinian land. And then the last thing is what you mentioned, is the control or the government. Hamas, one of the things that they talked about, their response was actually smart, and it goes with the current phase, either with the regional or the international situation, or the domestic, even through the genocide and the strategic starvation policy. And so I, I mentioned it where Hamas responded actually that Hamas and the Palestinian factions cannot alone cannot take control or govern the Gaza Strip, because from the very start and with the summit that was held in Cairo, they actually said that they won't take or won't govern Gaza. And so this is up to the Palestinian government or the President Mahmoud Abbas. And so I've been calling ever since this plan was proposed, and even from the start of these negotiations, that there will be a joint Palestinian delegation that has the Palestinian factions and the factions in the Gaza Strip with the government to have the whole cause on the table, basically, because the US president, what he proposed, it is not just an exchange of detainees or stopping the genocide, even though the US and Israel are focusing on the negotiations when it comes to the detainee exchange deals. Yes, we care about the release of the detainees because some of them have been in prison for 40 years in Israeli prisons, and I also hoped that they will use the prisons, which means releasing all the detainees that have life sentences and have been politically detained through included in this plan, because this plan is very important, and the Israeli detainees that are of the Palestinian factions. And so I hope that this plan is as important as the Israeli detainees and what they represent to the Israeli government. And so governing the Strip is a general thing, not just up to Hamas, and it is up to the Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian factions in Gaza, and also the Arab and Islamic countries that have met with the US president and negotiated with him about the plan. They also need to be put into the picture, and they need to be a part of these negotiations, because this is about the future of not just the Gaza Strip but the whole Palestinian.
Yes, I get your point, Mr. Nauman. And of course, we have more questions because this is a very important topic which we need to address from all perspectives. I will go back now to Professor Nurhan Sheikh. Now, Professor Nurhan, Hamas has accepted certain parts of the 20-point plan, but did not address other contentious points like disarmament, for example. So which points pose the greatest challenge for the mediators?
I think maybe the one who is very challenging to mediator, not disarmament, because it's now I think we are a little bit far from that. The first step, which is very critical, as United States President Trump asked, is to release all detainees from Hamas. Both they are dead or alive, but they should release all detainees and all bodies they have for dead people. So I think it's very critical, because how come to Hamas to going through that first step, and at the same time Israel didn't go also for the first step and ceasefire. So I think the very important and very challenging is to start and to go forward in the first step from both sides. It means that Israel ceasefire and stop pumping people in Gaza. On the other hand, Hamas also release all detainees, because I think that Hamas has a lot of fears and doubts if it release all detainees. So what will guarantee that Israel also will going to peace and going to the first step? I think this is a dilemma, and this is because once we start and we are going to the first step, the peace process will come.
Okay. Mr. Norman, the delegation is led by Khalil al-Hayya, whom Israel tried to assassinate in the Doha attack and killed his son. How does this influence Hamas's position?
Honestly, first of all, what the Israeli government was a slack to all the international efforts that at that time were hoping to reach a ceasefire agreement, and Hamas and the leaders from Hamas were meeting to discuss the U.S. proposal. And so this is how Netanyahu's government is, that attacked the negotiating delegation. And by the way, in this meeting there was a positive outcomes from Hamas when it came to the card they were playing, and this shows in their response. And they also attacked the mediator that in these negotiations, and this hasn't happened from any country or any organization even to attack any negotiators or mediators. And so this was unprecedented, and it is very threatening regionally and internationally. And so this shows that we cannot trust this government, because when they attack the mediators and the negotiating delegations, they have actually crossed all the red lines and has become a country that doesn't follow the international law and the international legitimacy, and they do not comply to all these standards. And also thinking of Netanyahu and through the negotiations and our history with the occupation government, as Palestinians we look at the strategic matters first, and we don't take it personally, basically. Attacking and the killings that happened in Qatar, it is the same as the Palestinians that keep dying every day because of the and in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem, they are being attacked by Israel. And so I don't think that it is personal, but there are facts when it comes to the mistrust in Netanyahu's government. And so the priority now is the guarantees that are supposed to come from either the U.S. government and the U.S. President Donald Trump, and also from lots of countries that need to affect and have Netanyahu guarantee that he will not cross any red lines or breach the agreement, because before they have breached the agreement, when there was a truce, the first ceasefire, they didn't follow the protocol, only the humanitarian protocol. We are talking about strategic matters now. We're talking full withdrawal from the occupation army, reconstruction of Gaza, delivering humanitarian aid. And so all of these are the pillars of this proposal. And that we have been hoping for all throughout all the negotiation period. And so if they follow the or comply to the humanitarian matters in the first phase, then the question here is how will we force Netanyahu and his government to comply to the agreement. And so I have actually um, warned before from this government. These negotiations have to talk about the whole proposal and then implement them through phases. But agreeing and then implementing only the phase one, this is some kind of trap, and I think that the Palestinian negotiators will not fall for, and because it is basically the main card that they are negotiating Hamas with either the U.S. Government or Israel, which is a Daytoni card, and there is one important condition is releasing all of the Israeli detainees alive or deceased. And so the card that they're using to negotiate Hamas, especially Hamas, will follow in phase one and maybe in the first days of putting this agreement to force. And so how will they force Trump's government and Netanyahu's government to implement and comply to all the points of the plan? And these points are very important, by the way, for withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, not Israel not interfering with the government, taking who will be in control and will govern the Strip. We didn't negotiate for so long just to have some high level delegate or have someone interfering with the Palestinian affairs. We're fighting for the Palestinians to be free, and the next day government and the West Bank, Gaza Strip, the East Jerusalem to be led only by Palestinians. Even if we cooperate with the Arab and Islamic countries, they are on our side here, and they are helping us and backing us.
Yes. Professor Nurhan, Trump has called for everyone to, quote unquote, move fast, urging, of course, the completion of the first phase within days, saying that time is essence. How do you read that, and how realistic is this from a diplomatic standpoint?
Actually, President Trump, he's always trying to get things fast, and I think he doesn't realize how complicated the realities on the ground. And how far Israel is not, and Benjamin Netanyahu particularly as a person, he is not that much encouraged to go to peace. Because he has his own agenda, his own personal interest in continuing war, he and his government actually. So I think President Trump doesn't read the situation and all aspects and all complicated things in the situation. I hope that talks in Sharm el-Sheikh have very positive and concrete results, but I think we have a long way to be able to realize a complete settlement, and the whole settlement ended by a Palestinian independent state. But we have phases and the steps. The most important is the first phase, as I mentioned, to cease fire in Gaza, to allow assistance to enter to people in Gaza, and in return, maybe Hamas will be asked to release all detainees. But if we start in very positive way and we could handle the first phase, I think we can go into the second step and second phase until we reach a whole settlement. But I don't think that it will be very fast or in a very short time or in days. It needs a long way to handle it. But hopefully we can go step by step.
Okay.
We can handle it.
Yes. Mr. Norman, the occupation army continues strikes and relentless bombardment with dozens killed daily even while negotiating. So how can negotiations gain legitimacy under such conditions, and how does this shape Palestinian trust in the process?
Yes, as I said, it is one of the things that pushes us to mistrust Netanyahu's government and thinking that they are serious about these negotiations, the continuity of the genocide, and basically implementing the same policies that he has been using before Trump's proposal, the genocide, the starvation, and all the atrocities that the Israeli occupation forces have been doing, and the strategic targeting of the Palestinians. Also, the statements released by the Israeli leaders, Netanyahu, or the Minister of Occupation, or any far-right leaders, all of these statements give negative indications on the on which the government is founded on. We know that this government has been founded on trying to kill the Palestinians and forcing the Palestinians out as to restore full occupation again, and with all the bloodshed they're trying to take control of the cities. And so this government is founded on bloodshed, and from the very beginning we've been saying that we need to destroy the ideology of this government. We need to stop the genocide, the forced displacement, and then we need to stop the settlement and settle the Palestinian cause once and for all. But we know how effective the USA's rule can be. All the eyes are looking at the US government. If the US government is really serious about the peace in Middle East and not just a tactic because of or not because of him wanting to get a Nobel Prize for peace, which will happen in the 10th of October, and always talking about peace and of him ending 7 or 8 wars. I don't know what wars he's talking about. And so if it isn't just tactics from the US president through his tweets and speeches, if as Donald Trump said when he said that the Israeli government that almost all of the countries are boycotting this country and that Israel is now isolated, and so then they proposed the US plan. And so if this is a real strategy that the US president is convinced of, that the bloodshed and the genocide will actually destroy such ideas and will put Israel in a bad position, and it is USA's ally, and then the US has been affected by this too, when the countries around the world have talked about their policies and about and they face public anger. And so I think that if Trump is serious, he will be able to pressure Netanyahu and his government. Netanyahu is like a good student and will do what he's told by Trump.
But Mr. Nauman, Trump has reportedly said that he told Netanyahu, this is your chance for victory. How do you read that in terms of the Trump-Netanyahu dynamics that led to seizing a deal?
Yes, the US president has a different personality from the other US presidents, or maybe from the president of the countries around the world. He takes pride in himself. He doesn't want to look bad or stupid or someone who can be manipulated. But Netanyahu has been taking advantage of his relationships with lots of the US leaders, and they think that is a part of the U.S. government, like the Israeli ambassador in USA or other leaders, or even so, all of these have or are convinced, like Smotrich and Ben Gvir have talked about, but the U.S. president, he is narcissistic. He
Yes.
loves himself. Basically, he doesn't want to look bad or stupid. He doesn't want someone
I
to
get
be at the
I get your point, sir, and I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Nouman Tawfiq El Abed, Palestinian writer and political analyst, joining us from Jenin, and also Professor Nurhain Sheikh, political science professor, who joined us from Cairo. Thank you so much, both of you, for your valuable analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's episode of In Depth. I'm Hala Al-Hamalaya, and I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News. Top stories coming up next.